Yeah, sure. My name's CJ Bakaj. I've been in esports kind of in the leadership position for the past 7 years. I was a student, started the RMU Esports program in 2016 with a couple friends of mine. Have since graduated with my degree, came back because they needed some help running the Twitch side of things, and I ended up becoming the head coach this past year. So 7 years climbing my way up, kind of growing the program, either in a student position or as an assistant coach or trying to grow the brand. But that's kind of what I've been doing for a while. I'm also a high school esports coach as well. I started a program where I teach, that's my full time job. So I teach programming and software development and all that stuff, as well as running two esports programs, one at a high school level, one at a collegiate level. Very different in terms of those two, because one you're dealing with minors, one you're not. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of a quick background on what I did. Graduated in 2020, so pretty recent grad, but keeping up with the esports stuff as we go.
And what's your background in esports and gaming that made you want to get into coaching both at the high school and collegiate level?
Well, in 2016, when we started the esports program at RMU, it was just a club for Overwatch. Um, Again, a couple friends of mine wanted to get together, make an Overwatch team because there was no video game club on campus. There was like trading card stuff, but nothing video game related. So we started the Colonial Overwatch Club. I had played Overwatch for a couple of years, and that's kind of where it all started. They were all PC. I was on console, so back then the walls were still up. There wasn't cross-plat. Uh, so I was just kind of doing some of the administrative stuff while they actually competed. I didn't get to really compete until I was a senior. So 2019, 2020 is when I was competing for the Overwatch team. But at that point, we had grown to like 10 or 12 different games. So it kind of started with Overwatch, and Overwatch is still kind of, in the back of my head. I still play it from time to time. I'm not nearly as competitive as I used to be. I started kind of relaxing after high school and started becoming more of like the RPG guy. But yeah, I've been playing games my whole life.
And for people who don't know, Robert Morris University, correct?
Yeah. Sorry, I should have specified that.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're
Robert
good.
Morris University.
And then when it comes to esports offerings that you guys have over at RMU, what do those look like?
Well, we have a ton of different opportunities. We're in 13 to 15 different game titles. Most collegiate esports programs only have like five. We wanted to kind of cover as many as we could. The way that we operate is if we have enough people to field a team, if there's enough interest, we'll do it. Pretty open to just allowing games to come in and out. We're starting Smash back up again. It was kind of quiet for 2 years. Now it's back. Don't know why that came back, but it is. It just kind of came out of nowhere. I all of a sudden started getting recruits left, right, and center for it. We give scholarships out for a couple different things. You don't have to be really good at a game to get a scholarship from us. I give scholarships to as many people as I can because they didn't give me a limit. So as many dollars as I can throw out to students, I do that for production, whether it be casting or in the background running things on Streamlabs or anything like that. Trying to give out as much money as I possibly can to as many different people as I can, because if you're coming to RMU, you're usually coming for the academics. It's a business school by tradition. We aren't Maryville. We don't have, world class League of Legends programs. That's just not something we can compete with. It's like trying to have Alabama football team take on like a local high school. Like it's not something that's possible. So if you're coming to RMU, we're just kind of giving you that little bit of an incentive, saying, hey, come play for us. Attend our academic schools, for whether it be for business, for IT, nursing. Those are kind of like the bigger majors in the area. And then come play for us or come help us with the streams. We've tripled in size through COVID, so obviously it's at least helping that we're bringing in all these different players. And I usually emphasize it's not about the rank, because I don't really care if you're an SSL. I don't. If you have a good attitude, you want to learn, you want to be with a team, that's what I value more. I don't particularly care if you're a really high rank. People that like to flash their rank usually don't. They're focusing on themselves, not the team. And that's a mindset you have to break as a coach or a director, which those terms are used interchangeably at collegiate. It depends on how much the university wants to pay you. That's usually whenever you get that title change. So yeah, we offer a ton of different games. Everything that's popular on Twitch or in the esports space professionally, we probably have it from R6 to Rocket League to Hearthstone to COD. So we cover pretty much all of it.
So for you, you know, if a young player is coming into your esports program, what should they expect? Like, what is their daily life like? You know, in terms of practice, how cohesive of a group you guys are, things of that nature.
So that's something we're kind of reforming. And in 2019, we became an official club sport. So we were a club for a while. Now we're under club sports, which is kind of it's a little bit more time demanding. Whereas the club is just, if you're interested, you can play. At the club sport level, we get a lot of different things like our own esports lab and money to throw around for scholarships. So going into this season, we're going to start putting more of a regimented focus, build that framework, really give our captains the ability to work within that framework. What we're aiming for is we would like to see two practices a week with a VOD review in the middle of it. So if whatever league we're in, if the game is on a Friday night, I would like to see practice either Sunday, Monday, or Wednesday, Thursday, and we're bringing a platform in to help us with that. It's a piece of software that should help our captains manage that. And we're really looking to see kind of a little bit more dedication out of some of our teams. The one benefit to having smaller teams, so only having 4 or 5 games, is you can really micro. For us, we have a lot of different teams. We have 25 different teams across those games. It's very hard for 1, 2, or even 3 people to manage all of those. So we put a lot of emphasis on the captain, and we're trying to give a lot of power to the captain. And they kind of manage their entire game. So what we're going to be doing is looking at trying to build out a system where there is more training per week, more practices per week, and also team bonding. We're trying to build that into this year because that's also very important. It's been on the captains to kind of make that happen, but now we're going to start to push. Now that we have the backing of club sports, in the past 2 or 3 years from campus recreation, we can throw our weight around a little bit more. I can't move classes around. I'm not under athletics. I can't postpone a test because you have a League of Legends game. I can't do that. But now we're going to start pushing that envelope of how much can we get away with. And I think we're really going to start this year, start to see some better results. And we've already seen that in the spring. We had a record number of our teams above, 500, which was normally we're around that area. But in collegiate, there's so many forfeits and the leagues just don't know how to handle that. So as they're trying to figure that out, it unfortunately means that if you have to reschedule, the other team's probably just going to say, sorry, we can't reschedule, so you have to forfeit and we get a win. That's starting to change in the leagues. So now we're starting to see our standings go up. We're starting to climb that ladder a little bit more. And I think going into next year, we have a really good shot at CRL, Collegiate Rocket League. I think we should be able to handle that. And I think that whole structure that I was referring to is really going to help us push forward.
Yeah, it seems like you guys have a good setup, or at least, you're reconstructing it too to meet. Speaking of which, I know that you mentioned you are also a high school coach. You have a young high schooler who's deciding on whether they should be pro or they should go into a collegiate program. How would you advise them?
So I've had to do that already once or twice. I've only been a high school coach for this past year. That's whenever I started teaching. But obviously, as a collegiate coach, I have a bit of a bias. I think pursuing a degree is important, and it will really kind of build out your portfolio. You can still go pro post college. We've had 3 or 4 from RMU do that. You can still go pro after you're done, but if I have a student that's like being, G2s knocking on my front door, that's a different story. You know, if I have a large organization that has noticed, you know, my player, I'm going to facilitate that communication. The biggest thing would be talking to the parents because they just don't know. That's a major wall that a lot of good young students, they can't get that conversation started. Because even like my own father, who I was talking to a little bit ago about esports, had no idea that the Pittsburgh Knights existed. I'm like, I've been in esports for 7 years and you have no idea that Pittsburgh has a team? So the parents just don't, it doesn't click in their head. They still think video games, you know, you're playing Super Mario Bros. They don't get it. So a lot of that communication is from me to the parents. So I would say, you know, if you have an offer from G2 or, you know, FaZe or SSG, someone's knocking on that door and wants you to go pro, send it, dude. Go for it. Absolutely. You can go back to college. You might not have the opportunity to go pro again. If you're thinking about whether or not to dedicate all your time on Twitch and try to get big or go to college, that's a completely different conversation to have. But yeah, if they can go pro, absolutely, for sure.
I think that was extremely well worded. When it comes to the esports scholarships you guys offer, I got two separate questions. What's the variety of scholarships that you offer in terms of, you know, on the lower end to the higher end? Is it partial all the way up to full? And then how much money have you guys given out in collegiate esports scholarships?
So for what I can do, I can't offer full rides. But what we do instead is we allow my esports scholarships to be stacked on top of whatever admissions can do. So RMU's base tuition is like absurdly high. And they do that on purpose because they want you to apply and then they'll say, oh, we'll give you $12,000 as a scholarship. Meanwhile, you know, I don't even know what tuition is. I couldn't even estimate because it changes all the time.
But you spend the rest of college.
Yeah. So they will give you a certain amount of money. Mine stacks on top of that. I can do up to $4,000 a year. That's the max I'm allowed to offer. And whatever, like wherever it falls in there, you know, whoever gets a certain amount of money is really up to me. I leave a lot of power to my assistant coaches as well. If they say, hey, this kid's really good, give him $2,000. I'll do that. And it stacks on top of what admissions can do. So that kind of balances out the power between us, which is a private, smaller university. We only have, you know, like like 5,000 undergrads. But that allows us to compete with, you know, Maryville, St. Clair, Northwood, the bigger collegiate esports players. So I think that, the max amount or what I've given out this year so far. Just about every recruit that I've brought in this year is on some form of scholarship. They are getting something from me. I don't know what our number is right now. If I had to take a stab at it, I'd say we're probably around 35 grand going into, and that's per semester. So that's going into this year. I think we're at about 35. We've just started ramping it up. I've been giving out more and more and more because they haven't told me that I should stop. So I'm going to keep doing it until they tell me to stop. It's not my money. I don't care.
And when it comes to competing against other colleges, you mentioned Maryville and others kind of being like the Alabama. I think it's going to be a fun comparison over the next decade or even more than that to see which colleges really come up as the staple colleges for esports. And of course, you want to be in the running for that. As of us currently speaking, who are those big colleges where you're like, they are the ones right now? You hear the Northwoods, you hear the Bay States, the Maryvilles. Who are the ones that are the biggest right now in collegiate esports?
Well, Maryville is just absurd. Maryville and Bay State, Boise's big, St. Clair's getting big. All of those colleges have, you know, full-time directors, full-time staff, legitimate money is being poured into those schools, which they aren't known for anything else. It's not like it's Ohio State. The schools have realized that they can make a name for themselves in this space, and they've allocated the funds to do that. In my area, Akron's the biggest one. So the Zips are the biggest one. They're not too far from me. We've started to build a bit of a rivalry with West Virginia and Penn State because they kind of popped up out of nowhere. Penn State made it to CRL Worlds. somehow. I don't even think they know how they made it. They made it through a last chance qualifier, somehow got in, and we're like, cool, send it. Let's see what happens. So those schools are starting to pop up, but they're still trying to battle against the titans of, Maryville, Boise State, St. Clair, Northwood. Those are the big ones that we're seeing right now.
What's it like for you guys? You kind of mentioned that you're a little bit on the smaller side. What's that like for you competing with bigger names? Like, does that mean that you guys potentially allow the students more like hands-on experience with you guys because you're not as big? Or what does that mean for you guys?
It means that the competitions are a blast. So my favorite, it's always David versus Goliath with us. Every single time we're up against a school that means something, it's always David versus Goliath because we're tiny. The fact that we have any type of talent that was here when we made the program is ridiculous. And we're going into next year with a full suite of SSLs on our Rocket League team. I think we should be able to actually do some damage. And if we can make it to that point, it's all about the recognition of being at a giant competition. That's how you get the funding. RMU is willing to give money out to the programs that are succeeding. We need to get into the category of, we just made Worlds. We're going to need some more money. That's what we need to start doing. So whenever we're playing against schools like Maryville, which isn't often, by the way, when we're playing against schools like Maryville or playing against schools like Northwood, it's usually in a giant league. So they're always concerned with the minor league affiliates to the majors. So the collegiate affiliates, so CRL, CLOL, usually the collegiate and the name of game. They're usually in those leagues. We compete in those leagues, but usually don't make it through the qualifiers. That's just something that we're slowly building up to do, and I think we'll make it into at least CRL, if not CCL is potentially for COD. That might be something. But when we're competing against schools like that, like at an admissions level, I can't do a whole lot. The only way that I can have a student buy into me is me say, okay, at Maryville, you'll be a sub and you might play twice this season. With me, you're a guaranteed starter and you're helping me build the program. I need to give them the power of, look, I don't have the best program in the world. I don't have the best facilities in the world. I can't give you all the money. If what's important to you is money, definitely go get it. I understand not everyone has the money to go to college and, do this. I get it. But if you're coming to RMU, if you're coming with me, you're helping me build the best program that we can, and you're going to be the poster child. That's how I have to sell the program. And if they don't want that, if they want to go win a championship somewhere else and sit on the bench, then that's what they want to do. I'm not going to tell them no. If you want to chase the money, if you want to chase the tournament, go ahead. But I'm doing the same thing, and you're going to be my keystone.
Dude, this is like legit like college sports talk,
Yeah.
How I have to imagine how athletic directors also approach athletes,
Yeah, I mean it's the same way, except they get six figures.
Hey, one day.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we're getting there.
What I have to know as well, what's the biggest collegiate esports success to go through your program or maybe be around your program?
One of the very first people that came through RMU was David Roebuck, and he is not a well-known name because he's not in one of the bigger esports names, but he helped us a lot with building Twitch out. He did a lot for us. He's in 2018, 2019, he was number 2 in the world for NHL. He's still competing to this day. I think he just finished top 4 in the competition that they have for the NHL themselves. He signed with an org in Canada. I think he's still up there. But Junior Pens, and he's partnered with the Penguins. So he's probably the biggest star that came out of RMU. We have a couple more. Captain Icefire, Chris, he's signed with another org as a content creator. RBG, it's a smaller org. And I think Travis signed with someone. I don't remember the name of the org, but we have 2 or 3 that have signed with organizations, but Roebuck's definitely the biggest one.
Yeah, I think we covered all the bases on that. We really do appreciate your time. And of course, we want to maybe talk to you again in the future at length about some updates over at RMU. But if anything else, the floor is absolutely yours. And thank you again for the time.
Yeah, no problem. Definitely down to chat again. You had mentioned it's kind of like sports recruiting for college football and things like that. It's exactly what it is. Spot on, 100%. That's how I have to look at it in order to sell my university. But